All right, folks, welcome in. But we want to cut right to Donald Trump speaking right now with Keir Starmer from England.
That's right. And here I am.
And here you are.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, sir, have you spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu? Or might you speak to him?
I've spoken to everybody.
What will you say?
Israel is doing very well, as you probably noticed. And I gave Iran 60 days, and they said no. And the 61st, you saw what happened. Day 61. So I'm in constant touch. And as I've been saying, I think a deal will be signed, or something will happen, but a deal will be signed. And I think Iran is foolish not to sign one.
Iran is accusing Netanyahu of attacking them to deliberately derail your nuclear plan. What do you say to that?
No. Look, Iran should have signed the deal.
If it would help bring Iran to the negotiating table, would you guarantee that the U.S. would not get involved militarily?
Well, I think Iran basically is at the negotiating table. They want to make a deal. And as soon as I leave here, we're going to be doing something. But I have to leave here. I have, this commitment. I have a lot of commitments. I have a commitment to a lot of countries, including the UK, where we just signed our deal.
Where are you settling on steel tariffs?
We're gonna let you have that information in a little while. They're starting already.
Mr. President, do you agree with the European push to apply more sanctions on Russia? Do the US support that?
Well, Europe is saying that, but they haven't done it yet. Let's see them do it first.
You said earlier that you could sanction Russia. Why wait? Why wait to sanction?
Because I'm waiting to see whether or not a deal is signed.
Can you guarantee the UK would be?
And don't forget, sanctions cost us a lot of money. When I sanction a country, that costs the U.S. a lot of money, a tremendous amount of money. It's not just let's sign a document. You're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Sanctions are not that easy. It's not just a one-way street.
Mr. President, on AUKUS,
Israel
the
can.
submarine agreement, is that still proceeding, even if it's sort of review of that?
Yeah, we're proceeding with that. It's a really important deal to both of us. I think the President is doing a review. We did a review when we came into government, so that makes good sense to me. But it's a really important...
We're very long-time partners and allies and friends, and we've become friends in a short period of time. He's slightly more liberal than I am, to put it mildly.
Well, we stand slightly on the left.
But for some reason we get along.
We make it work.
On Russia, there's quite a few British voters who worry the side war with the Russians over the Ukraine war. Can you reassure me?
No, I don't. No, I just, you know what I side on? Saving lives. I only care about saving lives. We have nothing to do with it except that Biden stupidly let us get into that mess and gave him $350 billion. $350 billion. And yet, despite that, you saw how we did in the Middle East. We took in $5.1 trillion. We have $15 trillion almost, looking around that number, going to be invested in the U.S. So the money is not the thing in this case. It's 5,000 young people are being killed every week in Russia, Ukraine. And if I can stop that, I'll be very happy. They're Ukrainian and they're Russian. So you could say, what am I doing? But I'd like to see if I could stop it.
Would you consider going...
that Israel can fully eliminate the threat that Iran poses this nuclear threat because without the United States?
Who said that?
No, I'm asking if you believe they can.
Well, it doesn't. It's irrelevant. Something's going to happen.
Have you
Mr.
spoken
President,
to the
would you
Leftist
consider
leaders?
traveling to the Mideast as part of any talks with the Belt broker in the U.S.?
Yeah, but I think we're doing pretty well. We're talking. We have a thing called the telephone, so we're talking. But it's always better to talk in person.
Do you want to see regime change in Iran?
I want to see no nuclear weapon in Iran, and we're well on our way to making sure that happens.
And we've had a discussion about that this morning. There's in the G7 absolute clarity in relation to the nuclear program. We do not want to see it.
Mr. President,
Do you have a response?
What? The UK is very well protected. You know why? Because I like them. That's why. That's their ultimate protection. Thank you very much. The Prime Minister's done a great job. I want to just tell that to the people of the United Kingdom. He's done a very, very good job. He's done what other people, they've been talking about this deal for 6 years, right?
6 years.
and he's done what they haven't been able to do. So he's done really a very good job.
In response to Tucker Carlson criticizing you, saying that you're complicit.
I don't know what Tucker Carlson is saying. Let him go get a television network and say it so that people listen. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of them.
Well, there's the man wrapping it up. You know, it's interesting. It seems like a unilateral opinion that nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Trump's the first guy who's really honestly willing to take a stand with Israel on it. All right. Well, folks, the self-proclaimed party of peace, love, and tolerance is not exactly peaceful, loving, or tolerant. Obviously, with the headline event being the former senior appointee for Tim Walz assassinating. Yeah, he assassinated a Minnesota lawmaker and her husband, as well as wounding another and hurt his spouse. And instantly, the usual suspects in the media took this to blaming at Trump.
I feel like Trump has really popped the lid off the rhetoric and the sense of hate and violence and promoted this type of an environment. It's profoundly disturbing for all of us. We have seen increased threats across the country.
No, he didn't. He did not. Trump had nothing to do with ramping this. Ironically, this did happen a few weeks after, though, Tim Walz said that we need to get meaner, though.
The governor's being mean, and the governor's speaking out on that. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner.
Oh, really? Care to weigh in on that, Libs? Trump didn't do this. You guys did. You liberals did. Trump had 2 attempts on his life. Took one in the ear, actually, both by radical Trump haters, not Republicans. You have had attacks on Tesla dealerships by liberals, not Republicans. You had a radical leftist firebomb Democrat Governor Shapiro's mansion in Pennsylvania, not a Republican. Israeli diplomats murdered in Washington, D.C., not by Trump supporters. You had someone murder a healthcare CEO in New York City and is being celebrated by the left. People are idolizing this kid for assassinating someone. Even making a Netflix series about it. And now a guy formerly appointed by Tim Walz to his inner circle? Of course, the Minnesota Star-Tribune used this headline. Fact check. Did suspect in Minnesota shootings have close ties to Governor Tim Walz? No. And then you scroll down in their own article below that headline. Bolter was appointed to a state advisory board by Tim Walz. In the former Democrat vice presidential candidate's administration in his state. The media tried to make him out to be a Trump supporter, too. One even saying, quote, he was deeply religious and conservative. Oh, really? Is that why he was apprehended with a ton of No Kings protest flyers in his car? His wife, who was separately grabbed in a traffic stop, had tons of guns and ammunition in her car, too. I'd like to also know why they don't intend to release this guy's manifesto, where apparently he had targeted 70 other representatives and people. And you want to know how I know he wasn't a conservative Trump supporter? Because, one, they're not releasing the manifesto, just like with the trans shooter in Tennessee. They held that thing for as long as they could. And two, because we haven't heard a word about banning guns from a single lib in the aftermath of this shooting. Just like we didn't hear a word about banning guns in the aftermath of the healthcare CEO assassination or Trump's assassination attempt or anything else that Democrats do. If people weren't getting injured and losing everything, it would be comical about how the party that ran on a talking point about January 6th for 4 years as like political violence, despite the only person being killed that day was an actual Trump supporter, Ashley Babbitt, with the only fires that day from smoke grenades that the Capitol Police lobbed into the crowd. There was not a single American flag burned by one of those protesters. And yet every single legacy media commentator for the last 5 years decried it as the worst day since Pearl Harbor, but could not say more often in regards to these No King protests over the weekend that it was mostly peaceful.
Thousands of No Kings rallies held across the country Saturday remain mostly peaceful.
With the No Kings protests across the country against Trump's policies. They were mostly peaceful.
Gunfire breaking out at an otherwise peaceful protest.
Gunfire otherwise, but you had burning buildings, people trying to fight horses, looting stores, screaming at cops. And this, kids given a stick at one of these parades to beat a Trump piñata. Yeah, that's really fostering peace of the younger generation, right? I'm curious, will Bank of America voluntarily provide any debit or credit card transaction records of the customers who used their cards in and around these riots that were shooting but mostly peaceful, like they did to the people of January 6th? No? Why not? This is my problem with the left. They do all kinds of stuff like this and then criticize Donald Trump for having a military parade that I was at, by the way. It was awesome to be there. Saying it's a total misuse of resources. It's totalitarian. Coming from the same party that did this, that had Joe Biden out there with devil red lighting behind him, flanked by U.S. Marines, calling the same people that are majority, by the way, electing Donald Trump. They called us a threat to democracy from that speech. Imagine that. Ironically, from the people who have no idea what democracy is. A democracy is where the majority rules. And I'd be real careful about advocating for that, libs, right now, because your party has been on the wrong side of 80-20 issues recently. In a democracy, you see, my side, because we won, there's more of us, can tell your side to shut up, and there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, but what about my First Amendment rights? See, now you're understanding, because that's a constitutional republic where rights are protected even against the majority, which the left seems so historically illiterate about. Democrats claim to be the party of diversity, just not diversity of thought. And look at the fear in the woman, the Democrat, the former Speaker of the Minnesota House, when, God forbid, the poor woman who was murdered, when she bucked her party, look at how upset she was.
I know that people will be hurt by that vote, and we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision.
Her party was horrible to her during that vote because she voted against stuff for illegals. And still, the liberal media refuses to call this what it is. This was an assassination because someone didn't vote the way this Democrat thought she should have. That's what it was, by a Democrat. That's what regimes do. That's what totalitarians do. That's what kings do to dissidents. Yet you libs just held protests saying no kings. Weird, huh?
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.